All right, everybody, welcome back. Welcome back to the first Friday of 2025. 51 more to go, if my math is correct. For many, this week serves as a time of reflection, a time to look back, identify areas of growth, and set goals for the year ahead. While many Americans are excited and looking forward to the events of January 20th, I can't stop myself from thinking about how we got to where we currently are as a nation. The failures of the Biden administration are so many. They ultimately laid the blueprint for Trump's return, as many mistakes also left Trump with a ton of work to do and nearly sank our country to unprecedented depths. Unfortunately, this week of reflection, we learned more about a pair of hate-driven attacks on our nation, attacks that were completely preventable and would have never happened if our leadership put our interests, American interests, America first, and our safety first. The despicable ideologies and actions of invaders and criminals are never condemned in Biden's America. They never were. Nothing has or will ever be done to prevent similar attacks from taking more of our lives in the future if it were a Democrat in office, at least not for the next 17 days. We've got to keep our eye on that. So as I reflect, I want to remind and rewind one last time to a soundbite that tells you where the priorities of that ruling class clowns, where they lied. A clip that foreshadowed years of negligence and ignorance during a presidency that will be always remembered largely for the devastation and crime that was enabled and allowed.
And what we in the Department of Homeland Security have assessed is that the greatest terrorism-related threat that we face in the homeland is the threat of domestic violent extremism. Individuals drawn to violence because of ideologies of hate or false narratives propagated on social media and other online platforms. And the most prominent threat is the threat of white supremacists.
See what he did there? He blamed everything on white supremacy. He played the race card. That was Mayorkas, that clown, that fool, that moron who was impeached, who never left because the Senate wasn't smart enough. It was held by Democrats. They didn't confirm the impeachment. So that moron was allowed to stay in the job that likely allowed a lot of people to get killed. Unfortunately, that clip hasn't aged very well, kind of like old milk. Americans have done everything possible to simply stay afloat under the Biden administration, Biden-Obama administration. The priority was never us. Well, now let's look ahead a little bit. Let's assure you that we will soon be the priority again. America first. Trump has said it nonstop, America first. And with that said, we have plenty more to discuss, so let's react. The woke mind virus never takes a break as the world continues to react and mourn after the despicable massacre in New Orleans. Certainly companies simply couldn't control their desire. Some of them couldn't control their desire to push their selfish, stupid DEI narratives. I'm going to get right into it right now. Listen to this Allstate insurance clip that came out right after the horrible New Orleans attack. Listen.
Welcome to the Allstate Sugar Bowl. Wednesday, tragedy struck the New Orleans community. Our prayers are with the victims and their families. We also need to be stronger together by overcoming an addiction to divisiveness and negativity. Join Allstate working in local communities all across America to amplify the positive, increase trust, and accept people's imperfections and differences. Together, we win.
Wow. Allstate, congratulations. You just dug your own grave. Bud Light, ring a bell? Somehow, this jerk thinks plowing through a crowd of innocent bystanders is nothing more than an imperfection, as he said, Mr. Allstate. And to recover from this act of terrorism, we should simply try to embrace people's differences. Go F yourself. Folks, we've seen this happen time and time again. Something horrible always happens, and these major organizations decide to put their feet in their mouths, both of them, with some woke BS. They're always canceled shortly after. Yet these corporate idiots just never learn their lesson. Take the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse in Baltimore. The ship that hit the bridge was owned and operated by this company called Maersk. The slightest bit of digging exposed the organization as completely negligent, a cargo ship company who only gave a crap about being woke and pro-gay agenda and prioritizing a multiracial, diverse, and underqualified staff. We did it. We exposed that. So Allstate, get ready to meet your demise, because we did a little bit of digging there too. Tragedy struck this nation, and your shameless ex-Twitter clips will now cost you your reputation. This commercial that we just showed you aired on national television during the Sugar Bowl that they, Allstate, sponsored. What a huge mistake. This tone-deaf statement immediately sparked a social media fire, and the public reaction is basically unanimous in agreement. Allstate, you gotta go. The video is deleted, by the way, from all of Allstate's social media. That's important. They deleted the video because of the backlash, but the damage is done. All of the incredible internet journalists did their homework, and now customers are fleeing Allstate in waves. So let me ask you, do you one day want to become an Allstate board member? I don't know, sounds pretty good, right? Probably lucrative. Well, let me tell you what they prioritize Allstate before hiring for the role of board member. Look at this. First, they're going to look at your skin color, an immediate form of discrimination. Look at that. If you're not African American or a female, don't even bother to apply. They don't care about your qualifications or your ability to do the job. They just want you to look a little different than the last clown they hired. That will automatically give you a leg up if you're a woman, if you're black, if you're Asian, if you're minority. But if you're white, don't even try. It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter in the slightest who you are. Remember, meritocracy is what the country was built on. But if you're white, it shouldn't matter in the slightest. You'll actually find yourself at a disadvantage in Allstate's hiring pool. Now that is racism. I'm pretty sure it's illegal too. But if you're a woman or a person of color, just know that your hiring at Allstate is or could be exploitation. I'm not saying that you're not qualified, but in Allstate's year-end report for 2023, the most recent we have, they openly bragged about having the most diverse staff in the country. These maniacs are hiring people specifically for bragging about being diverse, not because they're good. Doesn't that just seem wrong? If you're somehow lucky enough to land a job with this company, get ready to meet your coworkers. Be sure to wish this, I'm not sure what it is, sorry, this person a happy Pride Month as you head to your desk. I wouldn't want to face the wrath of whatever this person identifies as if I forgot to say the right pronoun. Folks, all of this is publicly available information. We found it right on their website. There are no classified sources here. Allstate puts out a shallow, self-righteous clip in the wake of a tragedy. 15 people dead. Hours later, they're making those comments. And now should be reevaluated by anyone who uses Allstate insurance. These companies all need to be canceled, calling on grieving Americans to, quote, embrace our differences after a hate-driven attack. Well, that's downright insanity. Donald Trump told us, point blank, and he said it, woke is bullshit. He said it. He was exactly right, 100% correct, and he knows it. Look at this post from his Truth Social. Quoting, Donald Trump was right about everything. In typical Trump fashion, this is hysterical, but absolutely true. He was right about everything. He was right about Joe Biden being completely unfit for office. He was right about the economic ramifications of basically everything Biden did. He was right about the devastations that an open border would inflict on us, and will be right when he gets sworn in and immediately builds a damn wall. This list can go on forever. My point is simple. Donald Trump really was right about everything, which is why he needs our ultimate trust as he undoes Biden's destruction. We got to say thanks to our great sponsor, Goya. Goya Foods, a major international food conglomerate, huge company, Hispanic company at its nature, but really, really patriotic people. Very much America first. Bobby Nonway, the founder, the founding family, and the CEO, really great Americans. Love them. Thank you for sponsoring us, Goya. But in 2021, Goya launched Goya Cares. It's a global initiative to protect children and educate children on mental health. Goya Cares is providing schools and community centers with a preventative education curriculum and a free assembly that includes the viewing of Goya Cares' movie called Press Pause. It's a short movie, but Press Pause is intended to raise awareness regarding mental health issues, abuse, and bullying among children, teens, and in our communities. Press Pause is an educational film following 15-year-old Sofia Rodriguez as she navigates adolescence, self-doubt, and an abusive relationship amid her parents' turbulent divorce, set within the cultural context of her Hispanic family. The film explores her discomfort with unwanted attention from her uncle and the pressures of maintaining a facade of perfection in high school. It introduces the Press Pause campaign, promoting kindness and promoting advocacy, highlighted by Sophia leaving a note saying, "You matter," for a bullied peer. The film encourages open family communications about mental health and culminates in Sophia's transformative realization of her right to seek help. Through the power of empathy and small acts of kindness, Press Pause displays the importance of being proactive in supporting one's community and underscores the critical importance of self-advocacy. Thank you again, Goya and Goya Cares. All right, folks, time for today's Truth Bomb. Well, as we highlight, by the way, Truth Bomb, always uncensored, Bolling Truth Bombs. We highlighted under Alejandro Mayorkas. He can't seem to properly identify a threat instead of doing his damn job. Mayorkas spent his time under Biden calling white people all sorts of names. The threats of white supremacy and mislabeled domestic terrorists should have never topped our country's list of concerns. Yet, they did for him, time and time again.
This year, for the first time, we designated combating domestic extremism a national priority area in our FEMA grant programs, resulting in at least $77 million being spent on capabilities to detect and protect against this threat nationwide.
The problem here is that you jump on one sort of crime, one crime committed by one name that sounds exotic, one brown face, rather than looking at all of the domestic terror that we face, including what the FBI says, is a really big problem, which is young white men in America.
You see what they played the race card for 4 freaking years. I was on a show last night. I was on a panel with 4 other liberals, 1 conservative, 4 other liberals. And I said there was no domestic terror under Donald Trump. There were no terrorists on American soil under Donald Trump. Under Obama, we had the San Bernardino killing. We had several others. Trump, nothing. And then Biden comes back and we have, the George Floyd nonsense and terror attack after terror attack after terror attack on our soil. And the panel pushed back saying January 6th was a terror attack. I said, bullshit, it was. It wasn't a terror attack. No one got killed. The only person that got killed was Ashley Babbitt, who was one of the people who were protesting. That's not terror. And if you call that terror, then the summer of 2020 was a full summer of Joe Biden inflicted terror on America. Truth bomb, folks. Can you imagine hating one man so much that you're willing to forsake an entire country and the greater good of the country just to hurt the one guy? Sun Tzu is a philosopher, old-time philosopher, Asian philosopher, said, an evil enemy will burn his own nation to the ground just to rule over the ashes. That has never been more true than right now. Joe Biden, even in his dementia stupor, still seems hell-bent on delivering an America to President Donald Trump that is unrecognizable. Let's get into it. That one quote from Sun Tzu highlights the consequences of leaders who lack empathy, who lack morality, and who lack compassion for their people. And that is entirely true of Joe Biden. Every single policy, the entire agenda over 4 years has been predominantly focused on one thing and one thing alone: stop Donald Trump. When Joe got into office, he reversed whatever Trump policy he could through executive order. Executive order after order. He sent his politicized three-letter agency, dogs, to come at Trump from every single angle. Who can deny that the last 4 years of lawfare against Trump have been insane to watch? You just put yourself in Trump's spot. He was a citizen. He was a former president, sure, but he was an American citizen. He wasn't elected office for the last 4 years, and they were going after him, trying to bankrupt him, trying to put him in prison. You imagine being an American, just a regular guy who wasn't a former president? You have no defense. It's the type of stuff you only read about in some distant African country most Americans have never even heard of, or in some movie that's almost unreal, almost too fake to watch. But by the way, Joe Biden still thinks that lawfare wasn't enough. He literally just said in an interview that he regrets picking Merrick Garland as Attorney General because Garland, was too slow to prosecute Trump for January 6th. 4 years they did it to the guy. They impeached him twice and then went after him for 4 years. There's a million reasons to regret picking Garland as an Attorney General, by the way, a man who has held contempt of Congress, but I digress. And that's one thing, the lawfare against President Trump. But these things Joe Biden has done since President Trump won the election only prove, since in just 2 months, only prove that Joe's war was not just with Donald Trump, but with all of America. He doesn't love us. He hates us, folks. I was once told when I was being stifled and silenced in the mainstream media world, and this is true, that saying those words, Joe Biden hates America, were too strong. I was told not to say them. I was threatened if I said them. And then I said them. And you know what they did? They edited them out. True story. I don't think they're strong enough. Pardoning his own son, Hunter, well, who didn't see that one coming, obviously? We just didn't think he would brazenly go to this, essentially admit his guilt by spanning that pardon across a decade. He didn't just pardon him, he gave him 11 years of pardons. Once upon a time, Joe Biden at least pretended he cared about protecting Americans from crime, but he showed us that he doesn't give a damn when the crimes are committed by members of his family. Fine. Fair enough, I guess, if you want to be that way. But the pardon of 37 monsters on death row, killers, rapists, criminals who've done unspeakable things to children. Joe Biden felt some need to protect those animals? Selling off pieces of the border wall to the lowest bidder for pennies on the dollar before Trump gets in, who could use that border wall to rebuild it, pieces, the material. Why is an angry, senile, America-hating president allowed to make any decisions at all? Hasn't this man done enough damage to the country? Well, apparently not. Biden's about to write an executive order, listen to this, using a 72-year-old law, the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act, to solidify protections that are notoriously difficult to reverse in order to permanently ban offshore oil and gas drilling before Trump takes office. That's right. Joe's war on American energy continues right to the very last bitter moment of his crappy presidency. And now we learn the day after a jihadist terror attack on our own soil down in New Orleans that Joe Biden and Jake Sullivan, his national security advisor, are considering bombing Iran right before President Trump takes office, if Iran gets any closer to making a nuke. That would drag the United States into another endless war in the Middle East, and they want Trump to be too distracted dealing with such a war so as he doesn't spend his real time fixing our real problems. These people are genuinely evil. And by the way, why is Iran closer to making a nuke? Well, you can thank Joe Biden and Barack Obama themselves for that. Biden and Obama gave Iran billions and billions of dollars, made them richer. Billions. For Donald Trump, undoing the last 4 years will be the most difficult thing any president has ever had to deal with. But what Joe Biden is doing right now is trying to light everything on fire on its way out the door, despite the harm he's causing Americans in the process. He didn't care. I can say with full confidence, Joe Biden will go down as the worst president in American history, period, full stop. Joe Biden has always known better, and despite his descent into dementia, He has always known better as well, but doesn't care and doesn't give a shit. Doesn't care what happens to America. And we know that the cover-up of Joe Biden's condition was pure treason and extremely dangerous for our country. And they are already preparing themselves for the massive cover-up. Look no further than the desperation of the New York Times, the old gray lady, trotting out President Reagan's daughter, Patty Davis, who's historically been a liberal. And Patty Davis says in the New York Times, quote, "Maybe we should consider that rather than orchestrating some diabolical plan to deceive America, the people surrounding the president, family and staff members were just being achingly human." So all these people covered up Biden's descent into dementia. And Patty Reagan at the time, Patty Davis now, says they were just being achingly human. Shut the frick up. He's the president. We're all at risk. All due respect, Patty Davis, the world America lived in when your father, Ronald Reagan, was president no longer exists. The deep state is power hungry, and they control the media. There's only a diabolical plan and nothing else. You were right about that part. It is a diabolical plan, and was. But of course, let the cover-up games begin. Well played, New York Times, by the way, but we see far too clearly through your propaganda BS right now. I'd be willing to bet a lot of money that in the coming years, the legacy media will somehow conveniently forget the pain that Joe Biden has inflicted on this country, the shame, the embarrassment, the sheer destruction, the inflation, the crime, the invasion of our southern border, which exacerbates the crime. That's all Biden. But that media, just look at how the legacy media has treated Jimmy Carter with kid gloves this week after he died. A former president dies, one who did so much damage to this country in just a single presidential term in office. It's almost as if the Soviets themselves planted Carter there in the most brilliant Cold War act of all time. And the mainstream media, well, including the likes of Newsmax and Fox, by the way, were clearly given strict marching orders by their overlords to pay homage to a president who built houses for the poor. Okay, you built freaking houses for the poor. You almost took our country down before that, though. A president who lived to 100, who was a centrist of all time. Total and utter garbage. You should have called him out. We did. It's lazy. It's lazy. It's dishonest. And it's a disservice to both our history and to the importance of learning from our history. Jimmy Carter's presidency is a stain on this country, and any other explanation is total propaganda. And the only reason I'm not saying that Carter's was the worst American presidency ever is not because he's gone, but it's because we now have been given a Biden presidency to compare it to. And one day, not too far off in the future, you'll see that same mainstream media BS will handle the Biden presidency with kid gloves too. Biden will die, and they'll forget all about the crap that we had to go through for the last 4 years. Just like they did from the very beginning and continue to. They'll talk about the poor old man who fell up and down the stairs and how Joe Biden's son, Beau, died of cancer and how his other son was a poor addict. They'll conveniently leave out the plagiarism, the treason, the corruption, his innate ability to impoverish the country. Middle class took a step down under Joe Biden to make us poorer and more unsafe, both within our borders and outside of them. They will gloss over the fact that Joe Biden is a Barack Obama puppet, and they hate America and Americans. They haven't done a damn thing for this country other than leaving the presidency. How can anyone say that this is a president who loves the country and countrymen and Americans? There's not a shred of evidence or decency left in this man. Listen.
And we're seeing that today. The Sugar Bowl is back on. Kickoff is going to take off very shortly. If I don't get this damn thing done, we're going to be in real trouble.
What a disgrace. What an absolute disgrace. Is he that gone? What, 36 hours after 15 people were slaughtered by some nut job driving in New Orleans? And this guy's making a joke? I got to hurry up and get the kickoff for the Sugar Bowl. Disgraceful. Another insult to Americans, and worse, an insult to Americans who were injured or lost their lives because of him, because of his bullshit policies, his border. He allowed folks, hold on one second. We've had 12 million people come across the border illegally. We've had tens of thousands of people on the terror watch list come across the border unchecked, spread out through the country. You don't think one of these idiots, one of these morons on the terror watch list could radicalize a guy who used to be in the military? Of course they could. Of course they could. Joe Biden's got blood on his hands. Biden shuffled out after 15 Americans died and said absolutely nothing about that disgusting display of pro-terrorism in New York City just hours after. And no one in the media, by the way, has anything to say about it either. Not one person in the legacy media pointed out how disgusting, how un-American, and how pitiful that was. Hundreds and hundreds walking in defense of terrorism in the name of Islam when a man just killed 15 Americans, maybe more, in the name of it. Reason 1 million why you don't hate the legacy media enough. Sugarcoating and glossing, all because the overlords told them to abandon all journalism. Nothing tells Americans that you care little to nothing about them than letting in terrorists and then doing nothing about it when they act. Nothing tells Americans that you care little to nothing about them than knowing that Al-Qaeda and ISIS have terrorist sleeper cells in this country right now, and drumming up the threat of white supremacists and far-right extremists over the actual threat of terrorists. Al-Qaeda, ISIS, radical Islam lurking in our streets, in our alleys, in our apartments, in an effort to send up a middle finger to President Trump in his final days. Joe Biden has sent $6 billion to Ukraine. Joe Biden has spared the lives of the masterminds of 9/11 terrorist attacks. Joe Biden has given $1 billion for the Amazon rainforest. Joe Biden, in the last few days of his presidency, his horrible presidency, has given $1 billion to African nations. He's pardoned and commuted sentences for pedophiles, killers, and spies, and he's delivered unto the American people an Islamic terrorist attack. Oh, and all of that unnecessary and unconstitutional lawfare against President Trump. What about that? He sends a resounding final F you, middle finger to Trump and to all of us that voted for him all in one, giving Liz Cheney, who committed treason and as revealed by the interim report, should be prosecuted. Joe Biden gives Lizzie a congratulatory presidential medal honoring her for, quote, exemplary deeds. Yet another slap in the face to Americans in the name of hating his political opponent. Reminder, a year before she started accusing Donald Trump of attempting a coup, Liz Cheney was talking about how the deep state was attempting a coup against President Donald Trump, remember?
We had people that are at the highest levels of our law enforcement in this nation saying that they were going to stop a duly elected president of the United States. That sounds an awful lot like a coup, and it could well be treason.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. That was Liz Cheney. She's the third highest ranking Republican in the House, repeating Donald Trump's unsubstantiated and dangerous accusation of a failed coup.
So I know also point out that the legacy media and the Democrats hated Liz Cheney until she flipped and started screwing with Donald Trump. Then she became their darling, and Joe Biden gives her a presidential freedom award or whatever the hell that thing was. And now Biden rewards her for becoming the deep state herself on his behalf. Could he be any more obvious? I don't think so. Quote, an evil enemy will burn his own nation to the ground, to the ashes, just so he could rule over the ashes. Sun Tzu. I fear that in his war against Trump, we Americans are right in the line of danger. Is it January 20th yet? All right, folks, it's Friday, so let's end with a little bit of a laugh. Take a look at this weather map from AccuWeather, this actual weather map. Take a look at that. We didn't make that up. Take a look at it, and the responses were absolutely hilarious. You can see what that looks like. Miguel's on X says, if that's the size when it's cold, I hate to see about when the weather is warm. This Kristen Mag said, if the storm lasts longer than 4 hours, be sure to call a doctor. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. Point is this, it's a bad weather, it's a big storm coming. Take care, be careful, don't take chances, but always stay on X. Hit us up, make sure you follow us, subscribe, send us an email. Bowling out for the weekend, talk to you Monday, folks. Hey, by the way, January 6th, on Monday, January 6th, we have a very, very special guest you're gonna wanna watch. Weigh in. This person was very involved. He knows everything that went on at January 6th. We're gonna highlight January 6th on Monday because that is the 4-year anniversary of January 6th that the libs hate and we say was a peaceful protest. Peace out.